So video game design versus software design. There's a difference between software design and game design. What I'm doing, what everybody's doing now is not soft. Like, well, I just argue that software design is not technically software design; it's game design. Everybody's when you first start making a video game, there's two things you come up with. One's the platform. Once you decide a platform, whether it's going to be for Xbox or a computer or whatever, you have to decide what game engine you're going to put it on. There's a couple choices. You got, as you see right here, Unity, Unreal Engine 5. There's a whole bunch of game engines you can download and use, or you have to make a game engine on your own, and that's where the software design is when you're making the game engine. Like everything, giving you tools now with obviously Unity and Epic that makes video game design really, I don't know, like at everybody's fingertips, but it's not really software design. You already have the software. What you're doing is you're still technically modding the software if you're using a game engine that's already been made. If you're not going from scratch, and building a game engine, because what you're going to do is you're going to decide, I do platform, then you're going to decide whatever game engine you're going to use and what you're going to build it on. And whatever, you got to decide what are you going to make, and then can you make it with a game engine? What game engine would be most suitable for whatever game you're making? And if you're making a game engine, you have to make it geared towards what type of game you're trying to make. So that's the software design part of it, is the designing the game engine. But after you have the game engine, there's nothing but you're loading assets, and you're using you're driving them with a little bit of code. It's not really making the software, it's actually making a video game. It's just game design, it's not software design. Not to me, I don't think. Like, I kind of argue with it. It's because people, like, they think you make a game and it's like, oh, you got to be this smart, or you have to be this much math, or you have to have this much knowledge on this and that, but really, this 90% of it's going to be asset driven. Your asset production pipeline to getting assets into the engine, and then having being able to function inside the engine. And the faster you can make those assets and put them into the engine, and then have it drive. That's the game engine part of it. That's 90% of the work. The code is about 10% of it. The game, when you're building the game engine, it's probably, that goes a little bit more lopsided to where maybe it's 40% art and 60%, code and everything. But if the game engine is already made, it's not really, it's not all the software design is already there. So when they made Unity or Unreal Engine, they like, what type of game do we want to be able to let these people make with our game engine? And so they give you tools to make. They're very versatile to make, from low end telephone games to even high end, high fidelity graphic games. And it's not really the tools are right there. And this is on I got an NVIDIA 1560 or was it 1650, one of the two, and it's running, and it's I still get high fidelity graphics out of it. But I mean, I can run both Unreal Engine 5 and I can run Unity on it. and use the high end. Maybe it runs a lot, you know, but it's the graphic settings are where you're gonna start off on every game engine, and that's deciding whether or not you want to have you know, an Android game or a game for a PC or a game for. I mean, that's what you're doing. You start a project, decide what it's for, and then there's all you go into the API and see what you can build out of it. The tools are there. It's your tools to make, and it's not, if the game engine's already made, it's 90%. You click on this, start a project, go to new project. This is Unity, 3D Core. Give it a project name. Create project. You have to wait for this Unity, so the game is just gonna load up. But really, all this is you're bringing in assets, you're dropping the assets and bringing them into the game. If you don't have to buy the assets, or if you do buy the assets, where should you make them on your own? That's where you're gonna get the cost from, versus making, you know, all the assets on your own and bringing in the engine. But see, you go to a marketplace, or you go to a store, go to the marketplace, and you can buy assets. These assets are going to be made. They're not going to let them people publish assets that are going to be bunk. I mean, maybe you got some that are better than others, but they're going to be able to bring into the engine and work in the game engine while you know, it's not going to be having the issues where if the animations are already made, the characters already made, the textures are already made. Now it's about optimization and building gameplay after that. This stuff's going to work. It's going to be able to go into the engine. Versus you go and make stuff for your own. You got to think about optimization, and you have to think about trying to make assets that are going to be functional in the game engine, and it might not import into the engine. The assets might not import right. You might have issues with animations not coming in. You might have issues with. I mean, there's tons of different issues that can possibly happen when it comes to using game engines and game design. It's when you're making, and then when you're making the stuff for your own versus this stuff in the marketplace. It's going in. It's going to work because they don't. I guess you know it's made to work. They have to. They're not gonna have like a bunk marketplace where you buy a whole bunch of stuff or somebody just load in a whole bunch of stuff, make money, and it's bunk. But you can, all these assets are legit. It's just how you use them, what type of game you're trying to make, and all this stuff mostly is for like 3D games. Like, but you can do stuff like there's a lot of 2D stuff. There's all different types of ways, and then you have to think about how you're going to make that game and what type of game you're going to put together. And if you're doing it with marketplace stuff, I mean, you got to mix and match stuff, and hopefully the art matches the whole thing. And you have enough, of certain items that you can give enough variation through levels and still have people attracted. So. But it's 90% art. All this stuff is art. You're bringing this art in and you're using it. But to start off, this is your game. This is your level. This is level one right here. This is their scenes. I guess it's in a sample scene set, but I can go in and start new scene. Basic built in. Create. And now I got a new scene. That was sample scene. But first you want to save it. Level 1. It should pop down in here. Save project. But everything here, you're going to start with projects, or everything you're going to start with your project settings. And this is, like I said, everything's already set up for you. There's not much else there's not much else from getting the graphics set up and getting your objects into the game, the graphics, all your art in the game, and then game engine, and then building the game, building the levels. But it's really all about 90% art. Everything. This you got your blank canvas right here. It's the game, and the game's already pretty much built. When you build it out, these are your settings. All these are going to be your settings. Your how to set up the engine, where do you want it, to get type of game you want it to look, or what type of platform you want it to go on. Like I tend to want to use, even if it's a computer game and it's a side scroller, I still want to use the high definition stuff. So you still have to get into your rendering. The lighting is about everything. That's good. If you get good lighting in a video game on top of everything else, makes or breaks the game. But you have to add packages and plugins and whatever you want to make. Me, it's just coming up with the idea, and I got ideas. I have no money to back it, so with everybody, I don't really need money to back it, but it's the coming up with a game. It's really to secure the IP, or secure the design, to where I'm not going to get it stolen from me, or I'm actually going to make some money for it, and then make it something that's not fraudulent, to where I'm ripping people off. But when you start off, this is pretty much your game. It's adding assets in after that. You make sure I want to get a lighting profile, and get a graphics pipeline that I want to put in here. And I want to use HDRP, so I want to use high def red. I want to install it, because right now the game has no lights. There's no. Well, I mean, it says it has no graphics pipeline set up, so you have to set that up first, automatically out of bed, unless you use some type of template, which you can use templates. But I usually go. I start with a blank canvas and I build in, but I'm always going to use HDRP. And there's a couple of wiggles about it. Sometimes, it's not really starting the project. It's coming from one of the latest builds of my latest games I've been working on. I got to keep. They came up with more functionality out of the engines. And made the engine, made Unity more, I guess it's almost neck to neck with Unreal, I would say. If it's not neck to neck when it comes to like capabilities, it's probably neck to neck. There's there. I would say the only reason why you would probably choose a little bit. I mean, to say the difference, I would say that Unreal is easier. It's definitely easier with blueprints, and Unity is a little bit more technical savvy or whatever. You can get highly technical with everything, but like when you go in when you start getting into building shaders and they talking about optimization, and then you talking about bringing textures or talking about what are you using, streaming textures, virtual textures, or I mean that, and then video RAM, that all that stuff comes to the optimization process. You have to think about that when you're building those assets before you bring them into the game engine. After you have an idea, you get the art assets and everything, and you got to set up the engine for it. Even within Unreal, you got to set up the engine first. I mean, you can use templates and build off of those templates, or you can go, basically off of nothing and build it all from scratch and customize, totally customize what you want to do with the game and to make the game. But like it's still pretty much modding. It's not really software design where, like I said, all the software is right here. It's done. It's made for you. What you're doing is just pulling in assets, setting up the engine, building levels, and then baking out a game. It's it's nothing. It's not software design. To me, I don't think it's still modding. If you go back to, I've been doing this since 2008, 2009. From 2012, I took a break and started making music around, I guess, 2011. And I took a break from it, and I went to school to use Unreal Engine, and that back then it was Unreal, what is it, it was Unreal Engine 3, but you were more modding then, but you still had to build all the assets, and then you bring it into the game engine, and they turned it to the UDK. That's what it was, and it became, they gave you the function, gave you an engine to, you have to think about what type of game you're trying to make with it, and whatever type of game you're making with it, you got to think about what's, it was more the line back then. Unreal Engine 3 was used for even Mortal Kombat. There was a lot of different games that Unreal Engine and UDK made that was, they was using Unreal technology. But it was still limited to where you don't know if, there was still limitations with the UDK because, it was versatile to a point because it was built for Unreal Tournament, and then they went and used it for Gears of War, and then other people started using it. I also think Rainbow Six, I think a Tom Clancy game was also like, I think Rainbow Six Vegas, which was a big blockbuster, a real good game, and then highly, I think respected multiplayer game was made with, Unreal Engine 3. There was a lot of games, but it's what you can what you can make with it, and it's after you move the camera and you start adding assets and you start changing guns around, or then it starts not being, it stops being modding and it starts to be game design, but you're still modding at the same time. But it's just not the game engine's already made. You're just seeing what else you can do with it. And this is the same thing. It just don't have this empty game. What do you want to do with it? So you had to set up the game engine to where you can use the game engine. It's like I said, instead of getting the visual effects graphics is supported in the high definition. That's why I need a couple monitors. I don't got a couple monitors, so I gotta keep them moving around windows. But I need those. You need those windows open when you first starting up Unity. Yeah. Please assign and choose the render pipeline and grab you. So that's what it's telling me. That I don't have a render pipeline set up, and that's why I got all these windows up here. So I just downloaded the HC render pipeline. Go to project settings, HDRP, and this I'm gonna have Unity set up for me. So I'm gonna have it fix this. It grabbed me it set me up a universal render pipeline. And if I want to use, I think there's a couple dynamic renderers. So yeah, remember there's so many different checkboxes. If you don't have something right, you got to go, and then there's a couple places to look up the graphics, and you got here. And even this is a drop-down box, but here there's another. So I need a render pipeline asset right there. So I have none. So I need to create a render pipeline asset. So assets, game object, rendering, create. That's it. And memorizing all this stuff, you gotta go. There's more stuff that I go online and look up to remember it, to know, and hopefully I remember this right, because it's been so long. I've been just upgrading. I mean, I'm gonna name. Well, I'm gonna use another one. So now I got this here, and bam. Wait and let this set up. Like I said, most of it's setup time, and all of it's well, I mean, like I said, most of it's the game engine and having it set up. But most of this is what you're doing at first when you're setting up if you're going from scratch to set up a game. But like I said, this is the game. You're setting it up and then building levels, and that's. But I mean, it takes more knowledge. Like you got forward rendering and deferred rendering, knowing the knowledge of what's the difference between forward rendering and deferred rendering, and draw calls, and it's frames and frame rates and all. It's all it's all that's real technical. Like I said, I've been studying for like the last 12 years, but I've really been working on coding. But like I said, I stopped working on video games back in 2012, or 2011, tried to do music when I dropped out of school to try to make some money to start paying school back. Because it was a 3-year school. And I trying to work full time and go to school full time. I didn't. It was spending. I had to slough a couple things off, but I mean I still made sure that I was all the time. If I was at home, all I was doing was this. This is all I was doing. But I was using Unreal Engine, the UDK. I didn't have real capability of making a game until 2018, and I was flat broke, and like I needed money really bad. So I was trying hard to try to make a video game real quick and try to if I would have got done. But I hadn't used. I downloaded. Before that, I didn't have a computer. My computer I was using Unity 5.4, and it wouldn't run Unreal because it wasn't a quad-core processor on the computer. So it wasn't used. That's the minimum requirements for Unreal 4 back then, and that was. Blueprints are way easier to use than coding it is. But interactions and everything, all that stuff, that's the code. That's coding stuff in, and but after you set it up, and then I need a lighting scene, so I'm gonna make a new one and call it my lighting. And then you also want to make sure, and then I might not have wanted to have done that because there's issues when you come around to volumes. Well, not issues of volume, you just want to make sure the volume that you're using is the same type of volume that the lighting that's set up for. Because you have to have, if you're using volumetric lights or any type of thing like that. So I'm gonna add a sky and fog volume into the thing, and that's gonna be something. It's gonna be a global volume. It's something that's it's globally there. You make volumes up, and that's in between. There's volumes, or are you going to control? Some things from from lighting to even gameplay. It all depends on. It all depends on what type of game you're trying to make and what you're doing. It's still. But see, this right here is where you want to make sure I got the profile set to match the profile that I'm using. It matches. This has to be set in here. So I want to decide whether you want a physics-based guide or guide. An HDR guide. There's real-time global illumination. Second last one, baked and direct. And these are your shadows. Oh, this is your light settings, and then you're gonna get into the shadow settings. But you got to put in models first, They start putting in the models to decide, whether or not, how they look versus not try to base things on 000. So that way, like, I know the start of the game, in what directions, and this is really pretty much how I started Unity game. When I started gaming in Unity, there's like I said, you got to do this now because if you're making video games, there's a lot of scam artists, and they're putting them out there. They're throwing the scam artists out there. They're pointing them out. There's a whole bunch of scam artists out there. So, I mean, technically, maybe I want to go with a terrain, but I really don't care about the terrain right now. So as long as I got, well, make a scale uniform. Don't tune. You got your shortcut keys, W, Q, W, R, E, R. They're all movement scale or movement rotation scale. So let's scale it up. Still keep on scaling up. So like I said, I can use I could use a terrain, but I'm not trying to use a terrain. It's like I said, it all depends. You got to think about when you use a terrain, that all the graphics rendering it's going to do, and you got to have everything is about, like I said, you have to know how it's rendering and draw calls and how your shaders are set up and stuff to where it's going to be, you have back face calling, where the calling distances are, how it's, everything that's on the screen is drawn. So it's the more materials, the more draw calls. One draw call, this box by itself should have, like, I think 3 draw calls. It should have the light, the shadow, and the color. So that's 3 draw calls. You start actually adding textures or any type of special effects, there's more draw calls along with it. Then if you don't have like you have to have like your texture sheet set up right. It's all about optimization and design. Coming up with a look, basic, and then start adding models, but you still have to, the shaders. There's a shader that's on there already by default, but then for me to access this shader, I have to put my own shader onto it to really be able to access it without so going to material settings or going to shaders. And that's not even going into shadings or talking shaders or anything like that. But there's a couple ways you can do it. This is basic out the box. This is a shader that's going to be used like it's probably most performant that'll work with the HDRP lit, lighting. Uh, I guess you want to say the pipeline. This is the best, probably the most performant material to use. This one that's made by Unity. That's you got all your different options, and you throw your maps in there. Like you got your base map, your mask map, and this is where you got your channel maps. Channel maps where these black and white channel maps, so you run to different channels. It's going to be your smoothest map, your metallic map, your ambient occlusion. That's what's going to be in your mask map. You got a normal map, so you got three different textures right there. And it's that normal is going to be another draw call. Every type of so it's like you got, like I said, you got missives, albedo. That's your basic color. And then your lighting and the shadows, but and there's all different. I mean, and making a shader, you can make a shader on your own too with Shader Forge, or I guess what is it? Not Shader Forge, just Shader Graph. It was Shader Forge, but now it's Shader Graph. But all that, it's really coming up with a design and then implementing it. Once you got the game engine ready to what you want to do, it's coming up with a game design. And like I said, I've come with game design. Just it's the fact of just not having money to secure the design. So without money to secure design, I'm kind of, I'm just waiting, putting together stuff and showing out there. And I'm just really making sure that I'm, showing people I'm legit. I'm not really trying to grab investors or try to fool investors. That's definitely not what I'm trying to do. It's definitely not the name of my game. But that's basically how you start it off. But you got to think about, with like I said, open world games. Why open world games are hard to do. It takes so much rendering and so many objects, and then you got to think about a character interactions. That's why like the graphics aren't as great, or they have a zoomed out kind of look to it, versus you're building a set and you're moving it, giving them an illusion of somebody moving through a world, but it's really linear. You only go in one direction. There's a beginning and there's an end, and it's very linear. I mean, they give you options to go through different doors to break break it up to where it shows like it seems like it's not a linear design, but it's still a linear design. You got a goal, you got to start, and you got a goal, and that's either at one level, or two levels, or three levels, or four levels, or it just all depends. And then with level streaming, all that stuff is already, like I said, all that functionality is already done with the game engine. It's already been built. All you're doing is adding it and using it. It's as simple as that. But if you gave it I gave this some sunlight, I got it kind of dark. That's still kind of on something. Physics based no HDR scale. I got one. So go back in. I don't want to go. I don't want to import an ACR. Like that's like those are. I can go in here and I go into the package manager and download an asset, and they'll probably have. Well, not download an asset, but download like something that has an HDR sky in it, or I can bring my own HDR like cube map in there. But I'm not, or HDRI image, but I'm not trying to take the time to do that. That's I'm just trying to hurry up and show this real quick and just like do my argument about game design versus what are called software design. But I need to go to here. It's kind of fun, wrong profile. Oh, it's not using. So those are some of those issues. My, that's probably a looked at thing, and that's that was 7. Set to ultra. This doesn't have one to proper on asset setting there. There are more settings. I still got to go on the settings. So there's some things I want to check. But like I said, they switched around from. There's so many different updates. You got to keep on going on. So many different updates. I'm not using water, so I mean, all these settings to reflect screen space reflections. To all these settings got to be light pro volumes. And I want to go to light pro volumes. And I'm hit fix because and this is all I'm still setting up the lighting. Not saying it's not complex. If I've done it a couple times, I've done it a couple times. But it's really doing it a couple times from having to upgrade my game from one version to the next version of the engine to an LTS version of the engine to the next LTS version of the engine. This is the new LTS version 2020, 22.3, and I haven't upgraded it yet still. Fix on. Go cha-cha, we're going. Let's see. A lot of red marks. A lot of red marks. So clear this. Now it's giving me another red mark. So I mean that's like going in. Not saying these aren't the problems. But so it's still giving me this blitter. And I don't know what that is. Also, whatever deal. Never seen that error before. So those are things that happen, and this is going through. Like I said, this is just starting the game up, but it's not. It's game design. This is not software design. The software's here. It's just making the game with it. But like I said, we started from scratch, and like I said, I'm getting these red marks, and they clear them all off. But let's see. There we go. Clear this. Hopefully, that should fix it. No, it didn't fix it. What shader is that? This is a bam. Sign for a problem. I'm still doing it. So back forward. You never have. It's never perfect. Really perfect when you started off. When you started off from scratch, if you don't remember everything, it could be tedious. But not. I mean, it's not hard. Just I've done it a million times. So, but anyways, the error is not an error that normally comes up. It's not a. It was something. It was like a glitch in the game that somehow it loaded two different volume profiles here, and I couldn't figure out how to unload it. And you only want one volume profile running. That's what I was saying, because it was getting the shaders. It affects the shaders, whatever, the whole thing, all the render pipeline settings go all the way down to the shaders, and how the shaders work too. When he has it set up like this, so this is for the HD render pipeline, and like that's they got a wizard just because if you do miss stuff, if you don't have a diffusion profile in there, if you don't have a default volume profile, you gotta go make one, or it'll make one for you. And that's why you start getting the files, and you gotta go back in here And like not saying it's like a pesty thing. It's not like a thing that you have to really normally worry about. Like I said, you can start with a template. You don't have to, it's an HDR render pipeline template. It's already set up. All your files are already ready in there. The only thing I don't get, there's two render pipeline assets here, and that's, I know I made them both, but why I don't have another render pipeline asset? That's where it can get confusing. Yeah, I got two there. This is my lighting profiles. You gotta remember where everything's at. But tripping. And you got one here. So that's it can get confusing, and that's some of the loop, like some of the things that can happen, and you don't know why it happens. But like really what it took me to do is to reset it, and then it recalibrated the engine, and then took one of the profiles and loaded only that profile and ixnayed the other profile. So it's that's stuff like that, like I said. But like you start with a template, you don't really have to. But the lighting, everything, just like Unreal now, you got a volumetric lighting system and almost real time date. Well, you got real time lighting and everything too, along with that, and then you can see the sunset. And if you have it all set up right, it should look like this. And this is if you're making like an open world thing, or you just need like a sky, a 3D game with a sky, or something like that. But it's all after that it's blocking up level. It's not really, like I said, everything is here. It's not really content design. I mean, what is it? Software design is really game design. The game's already made. All the software's already made. What you're doing is using the software to make a video game. Like I know, like to explain. And like I said, I'm not trying to teach because that's not a. But there's a lot. They're putting a lot of scam artists out there. They're pointing people out. They're like they're scamming. And I'm not trying to I don't use AI. I don't use. I try to use all my own assets. If anything, I use Quixel Magazine. But otherwise, it's I pretty much make my own stuff. But it's not like I said. It not really comes down to being software design. This is you're still just building assets, bringing them in the game, adding code to it. The game's here. This is the game. You just gotta after you just gotta build it out. Go to your build settings. It's set from Windows, Mac, Linux right now, which I turned Mac Linux and stuff off because I didn't know if it was something different. You never know. There's little differences between versions, and this is like like I think the second time, really, this is the first time I opened this version of Unity by all the way from scratch. Well, I tried it out with a template first, but then you block out your scene. I mean, if I went out and I wanted to add a terrain or, but you got draw calls and everything else to go into video game design, like draw calls, which is your basic stats. Frame rate, batches, set pass calls, draw calls, basically somewhat, but I'm already getting 56 draw calls. Uh, 56 of them with just this, without having. But I think that's the volumetric sky and the lighting. But that's how you start off pretty much in Unity. But like I said, it's still pretty much modding. They got Unreal. Like I said, it started off with Unreal 3. Well, being Unreal tournaments, they got around to a point where they were going to Unreal 3, and they're like, well, we'll give everybody access to this engine. They made a UDK to make it, a true development kit. Then I guess 2012, 2013, 2013, 2014, they came up with Unreal 4, which was when they implemented blueprints, and you don't really need code anymore, and it runs efficiently. It runs like pretty dang good. I've not had an issue with it yet. And I mean, you get all the functionality out of the engine. I mean, there's everything you can do with it. There's a few custom things you can't do with blueprints, but there's about 99% of the other things, or 98% more other things you can do without have the custom go in and doing C++. It's another fine tool, but like this one is more. I think it's just they made it really darn easy though. They made it real easy. So I'm not gonna knock it because like that's not part of that one. I was gonna go into a game version because it's too much. They already have made that. Have more quick rundown, but like I said, it's still. Basically bonding, like kinda, because it's the software's already built. Everything that all the hard parts all done. I mean, now it's about 10 to 15% more code. 10 to 15%. Well, with Unreal, you don't need code at all, but you still have to have some sort of. It's still code, but you're doing it with blueprints. It's just. And I started I did this level to pretty much learn Unreal 5 and learn everything that goes wrong with 105 from the lighting around to the blueprints, the new how they're doing how they're doing what's called so we're in the world partition in your HLODs and the HLOD system that goes along with it, then your layer system, then your data layers. That's new stuff to it. But and this is how I mean these layer switching is how you get you can layer switching and using the world partition and everything is how you get how they're optimizing more to be able to use these at Lumens be able to use nanite for all the high fidelity graphics and stuff. It's all that stuff was new into this engine. This is pre messing around. This is me doing messing around with this in water, trying to make a water shader on my own, which I really don't have to make a water shader. Like this, all I have to do is load a water system in. But I don't know what I'm getting some. Getting a little bit glitches out of it, but that's just a custom shader made out of my own. But I don't have to. I can just grab water and put water here now. There's so much you can do without having. You don't need. It's already made. Like this shader, a water shader. I mean, I heard some people judge people on the water shaders, but I mean, this is just a basic water shader, just that came up just for the concept to add a little bit of look, but I'm not taking advantage of nanite on this part because at the time you couldn't. This is a multi-layer, it's vertex painted. Everything here, this ground right here is vertex painted. It was I brought this whole set in to Blender and I gave it some, put a plane down, scaled it up, and I sculpted in some terrain and then brought it back in here and then I vertex painted it. I made a vertex shade, a vertex material, a vertex painting material, and then I painted the vertices, and it looks like it's from a distance. It looks like it's got a lot of detail, but it is, but the photo detail, but it's not really. It's really an illusion with the normals in the. But there's no. I have no displacement map or anything. I could use displacement, but I was, like I said, I was trying to see how far at base level, because I got it scaled at medium right now. Like this is all set through blueprints. Like if I go into the game and play it, even at the lowest graphics, like a lower graphics setting on a 1650 with baked lighting, I'm still getting. I don't have the lighting built, and this is just nothing but I made the texture, and I wanted to try it out, and I needed 3 TVs, and making assets by I made all this on my own, except for the flower pots. The flower pots I made, the vegetation I didn't do because I don't have scans. I don't have photos. I had to go out and take photos of real plants that really do my own. I can makeshift them, but you're never gonna do nothing better than natural color of a natural leaf. There's nothing you can't paint that and get it right. It's something that like from nature you're not gonna. It's just like man-made man or something. It's not gonna be as perfect as man is right now. It's not. It's one of those things. So that was just me being. I made one texture to try it out for one TV, but I mean, I had to make for a special effects shader like that. I can still drop the resolution on the texture and make a texture like a texture sheet with various different textures on it. Not and I just use the UV, change the UVs and flip around to where I can what you call it, pan through the UVs through the UV, pan through the texture and choose whatever texture I want to put up there. And this I don't really need to have all that much definition on the for the image. Like it's I think it's a 4K image, but I can break that 4K image into like 6 textures or 8 textures and still have the resolution I need for to pull this kind of effect off on it, but because I really don't need it to have that much graphics. It's going to be something that's going to be pixelated anyways, no matter what it do. Because that's like a type of like a see-through film type, but a see-through like screen type thing, like, but even this, it's not running all the way. It's not pushing. It's not using nanite right now. It's not using. Well, I mean, I am using nanite. It's not using lumens, but I'm still getting pretty good lighting, and then the lighting ain't baked. So, but it's how you set it up, and if you go in, like I said, the scalability. If I go to my blueprints. I should have this. If you get, it's important when you're using Unreal 5 that you got to keep it organized, and then you can't be copying and deleting a lot. You don't want, if you do copy something or delete something, and you're using world partition and one file per actor, you can't. You got to keep saving unless like you have. I mean, it's just putting. Well, it's making a world partition. It's still put it's still in one file per actor. It's loading that file and it's using that one file and it's allocating it somewhere. And when you delete the file, it's still looking for that file because it's part of this thing. It's not that complicated, but it's easy to understand. It's just you want to make sure you save, because how things work with like a computer, when it saves, it puts an empty spot there, and then waits till it comes around again, and it puts it back, puts whatever new you got saved, whatever thing new you have saved into that spot, when like in the file allocation table. It's working pretty much the same way with the files and loading the level. So, but it's going to keep searching back on that one spot for that one file, and if it can't find it, it's going to throw an error. Or it was. I mean, that's the way. Like, I just make sure if I delete something, I save after I delete anything. If I delete a model, you gotta like to keep from having issues with one file per actor or world partition, or even the load again. I mean, you can totally bust the level and you can rebuild it, get it back, but you lose everything on the level. There's a way. I mean, it can be a headache, and I spent a couple months learning Unreal 5, but like get back to yeah, you want to make sure you have it organized, and if your files you delete them, you save after you delete. You add something new, you save after you add something new. You move something around, save after you move something around. I mean, anything new, save, 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 save. There's nothing more. It's more important to save in Unreal 5 that I've seen. Well, I haven't used it. I haven't used this really. I haven't used Unreal 5 because I've been trying to learn code on my own. So I've been using Unity really to learn scripting. So, but I haven't been after I learned Unreal 5 and caught myself back up to Unreal 5. I was able to go back and start working on Unity and working on my games in Unity just because just the knowledge. I'm gonna go back to school and when I go back to school, I plan on finishing and I suppose that I got stuff planned up, but I mean I was just short of graduating when I dropped out, and I was planning on getting back real quick, but I didn't end up doing it. We just had another money. And I haven't messed with this file so long, so I can't remember where I have it at. So that's the HUD. That's not part of the HUD. Game mode. Maybe it's in the game mode. Yeah, you have to do this to make sure it applies to game settings that you do in Blueprints. There's all little loopholes. You think you can go into something and build it, and it might not work, and then you might not. You think you might be doing it wrong, but you're doing it right. It's just you don't have something else done. You need this done, and you need to do something else. So like the game mode has that to use my settings, and that's the blueprint to tell it to use my settings. So that's basically a script to tell them to use my settings. And maybe it's not even in the folder. Okay. I don't know if I have it in the building. Child blueprints. Oh, I got it written in the level blueprint? No, I don't got nothing written in the level blueprint. Nothing is written in the level blueprint. Alright, there you go. And then after you do this, you also have to go in. This is the blueprint I made to make for the setting. I mean, after you make the other one, according to the user settings, and apply my user settings, you gotta make your user settings, but I guess you make your user settings, then go back. But I had issues because after I baked out a game, it wouldn't apply to the game that I baked out. It would still burn out the full, experience of Unreal Engine. Where this is, I'm toning it down from cinematic, which is the full blown experience, to and this is scalable, and I can make a couple of these instances. And when I build a game out, because everything in here, you're gonna start with the same thing. You're gonna start with project settings and editor preferences. Same thing. It's still modding. It's not. It's not the. Like I said, it's here's your splash screen stuff. And what you want to look at is rendering. Or is it not rendering? It's game settings. Let me go to all the settings. Packaging. It's been a while since I went to open the Real 5, but you have it packaged out for Windows. You got to download the all the configuration stuff for Windows to be able to burn it out, and then the one specifically for your laptop. It's not, like I said, it's not hard, but like I said, everything's already pretty much made. This game engine's already made. Everything's put together. This is a tool to make a game, not software. It's software to make a game, but the game is not really, it's not really like you're making. It's 90%. There's so much settings in the game engine. I mean, it's ridiculous. You have to know the game engine backwards and forward to know how to do stuff. And there's so many things that come out and do. Then you got to figure out a new way to do things and new ways to make the art to bring it in. And then now you don't have to, worry about optimization. The meshes now, you can just throw them in here. As long as the UVs are right, you have no problems. But and like I said, that's all the functionalities right there going through. You're just linking one node to another node, and that's getting everything done. And then, like I said, the little nuances like that where you don't know that you have to do this and you have to do this for it to constitute or even go in, don't make it into the final bake, because otherwise it's already got default settings. And you don't know that it already has default settings unless you know the engine. The engine has default settings by default. And it'll run those default settings unless you tell it this. But even going down to, if I were to go to it's set a new window, so it's going to pop up a new window in the play mode. But even scaling stream down. This one, hopefully I do get the skill. So it's that's in the that should be in the that's something you have to put into the blueprint. So we make it for a computer. There's it's in the blueprints, but you have to all the settings are there. They give you all the tools. They give you everything you want to make to. I mean, now with like I said, when you got mega scans, you really don't need to have anything but making characters and like special set design pieces, like this building here. And then this is not even. This not like I said. It's not utilizing lumens or really taking advantage. I mean, without using lumens, there's a there's some things that you don't get with the lighting and shadows and details that you're losing in real time reflections. You're losing that when you're not using the lumen settings and but with the baked lighting and then shooting something where making something I guess where it's static, dynamic, or movable. Well, static, say somewhere. Static, stationary, movable, which is static, dynamic, and this is, I guess, another form. This would be in between where it's going to be. It can use, real time lighting or the real time shadows, or it can't be a movable well, not a movable object, but take dynamic lighting or static lighting, depending on how you have your lighting set, depending on how if you use a lumen or not, depending on what baked lighting, because some of this, like I guess stationary, might not do baked lighting, might have to be having to put it to static for baked lighting, but that goes into different things when it comes to distance. I guess what you call the uh, so many different terms, but like it's really distance fields. It's all these pretty much have options for. I mean, every model. You got to go through and check box these things to see what you like, what the type of options or how you want it to be lit or how you want the shadow. Do you want to have dynamic shadows? Do you want it to have static shadows versus you know it not have a shadow at all because shadows cost. Everything costs something. Like, and the more objects you got, the more shadows are being cast in like one draw call, the more processing it's going to take. The more so that's all into optimizing the game. But you get these same options for every one of these. Every model that you bring in, you got the same models, and we're determining how you treat it versus the static, which is like some object just off in the background. And now with HLDs in the world partition, it's you don't really have you have optimizing the game and making a big game. I mean, it makes it a little bit easier, but it's still a little bit harder because it's just more stuff. It's a lot more. There's a lot more functionality and more stuff you have to know, and it's new. And every time like I said, I've been using game engine since 2008, and you're talking about there's been upgrades and tool upgrades from using ZBrush or Maya to using Blender to where we're at today, where you got everything's going in on it. There's some, and then you know, and you don't even have to. You got a marketplace to pull the stuff in, but all these settings, like I said, everything's pretty much running in Blueprint. Even my character controller to, and then I can take this. I can go in here and grab my character controller. They got more drop down options. There's so much stuff. You have to know the engine backwards and forwards. And I don't get really too much stuff written in. This is running. This is running the motion, the locomotion. It's nothing. Nothing too special. But I mean, to put that together, it doesn't take but a few moments, like a few minutes, if it took that long at all. But you have to know that all this, you still have your player, like you got player options, and all those options got to be set. And that's where you want to start out with your world settings and start working out from world settings to the editor preferences, the project settings. But like I said, the game is already built. The software is built. All you're doing is making the game. It's my knowledge of like like I said, I've been doing this so long. It's way too much of way too much to remember. So like a lot of times, like I might go back and look up something to figure out what I did in between time, and meantime in between time using Unity and Unreal, and then learning new things that are coming up with like ZBrush, or the new updates of Blender, or how there's always they always make new tools, and they have new plugins for all the programs, and then all they do is they speed up workflow, which makes it easier to make it makes it easier, and it makes you be able to go further in the detail. Like you can work on a model for years and have so much detail done on it but I mean, when it's done, are you going to be able to bring it into the game? And some things, when you're making models, you got to think about if you're making it for a video game, if you're just making it just for like making it. If you're just making it for just to make it, you're not gonna use it at all. It doesn't matter what the topology looks like. It doesn't matter what your UVs look like. Then you can have it vertex painted on in ZBrush and not have to worry about texture and anything, or worry about texture and maps. Especially with now they added what was that they added Redshift to it. So now they got a renderer that's just as powerful as any other renderers out there, right in ZBrush. So it's you don't really it's when they add it all, they keep adding things and keep making things better. It's it makes a mess for trying to figure out how you want to do it. So like I had to figure out how I wanted to do it. I had to figure out what ways do I want to make the models? How do I want it to how did I, what processes did I want to bring and put together to bring the stuff in the engine, and then once it's in the engine, what do I want to do first? Is it important to set up the lighting first? Do I want to build the level first? Do I set the shaders first? Do I use my own shaders? Do I use shaders they already have in here? There's so many questions to ask, but when it comes to the final word, it's like optimization and gameplay, like something that fun there and it runs and works, and somebody's gonna play it, and it's not something that somebody just came up from like this. Like I said, they're putting developers out there now on blast, and I say even with this stuff, you don't know about it if you don't get DirectX, normal maps have to have the inverted green channel. You don't know that. There's more technical stuff. Like I said, I went to school, and the goal, what they did was, you were by the time you graduated, you would have been on a level to succeed at an entry level position and be able to move on to master it. That's what you're really in college when you get a bachelor's. You're going for an entry level position when you're starting off at the bottom. But the college I went to, they made it so you would excel at the entry level position. So you would be well prepared and be able to give input and succeed when you graduated. The whole problem, they lost accreditation because of placement. They couldn't have. They were getting sued for placement, and so they ended up, I guess, they closed the school down. But the school was a good school. They didn't. Placement is the reason why they lost accreditation. So, but I mean, it's something else. You'll know. You have to flip the green channel for DirectX, or something like, versus you don't have to flip the green channel when it's going into Blender. You have to flip the green channel when it's coming into Unreal. You don't have to flip the green channel when it's going into Unity. You don't know that. Just like Blender, you open up Blender, and you want to do a material or a shader or something like that. It does. It's basically the same way. Hope I'm yeah. Add a mesh, add cube, go shading, go this one. I might be putting a little bit, but way more demand. I'm not gonna switch to cycles and go to GPU because I'm just actually I'm gonna go to cycles. I'm not going to change it to GPU because I got Unreal going, and I think I still got Unity going. Yeah, I still got Unity going. But a new shader, and bring a texture in. I'd say it's a normal map. This is why I came home. I wanted to use Blender. I was like, well, it's pretty cool, but there's so much technical stuff. It's not technical. It's just things that are already done in Maya and other programs that you don't know. That I mean, you don't have to worry about. You know yourself that's the normal map. Some things have to be told that's the normal map. Like you import a texture into Unity, you have to let it know it's a. You have to let it know the size, and you have to let it know that it's a normal map. Otherwise, it's by default it's a RGB image, and it's I guess 2048. But if it's like that's on the import settings on default. If you got like a 1024 texture and it's supposed to be out, it's pulling the 2096 or 2048 resolution, it's going to be more pixelated. It should, yeah, be more pixelated because it's blowing that 1024 image up to a 2048. So I mean, and that's I said there's all that stuff you can. Say a normal map, bam. Now I import a normal map, and I shouldn't have. It's not set up for this, but it'll do. Now you gotta add a vector. You gotta let it know it's a normal map. And it's good to, if you're taking normal maps, you want to use the bump. So now, because now you can do, not only can you use normal map, now you use black and white textures overlaid on top of that when you put it into like the height map. So normal, which not, this is, like I said, I'm not teaching, but trying to make sure, like I'm not, there's people that are phony. And it's not going to work. Why is it not going to work? Why is it not working right? It looks like it's working right, but it's not working right. Like, why am I getting, why is that working right? I see this right here and it's starting to work. It works in the shadows. Why is it not work? It's working. Why is it not working right? Well, one thing, the texture's not, I don't have, the texture's not really set well. I think that might be by a square texture, so it's going to work. All right, yeah, so it's a square, well, mostly a square texture. So it's mostly going to work. But let me go back to this one. I know it's a square texture because the way I name it. Oh no, wrong one. Here, there you go. This one should be a square texture. Now specifically goes, you got to come up with a theme first. You come up with an overall look first. So this is a square texture. Now it looks like it looks right, but it's not right. Because it's not, you don't really realize, if you don't notice, if you're plugging in, you also want to add UV map. And this is only a cube, so there's nothing complex when it comes to how the UVs are set up. So I don't really, if I wanted to scale, I'll mess around with it. Add a vector, add a mapping node, bam. And now I can scale it. but it's still not working right because I'm not telling it it's a black and white texture. Like I said, some things that it's a non-color texture, and then it'll work right. Now I'll get my light right. But yeah, that's like change the strength. Make it a little stronger with some things normals you don't want to push them off too far. No more than like probably any more. I mean, it depends on how they look, but sometimes they can distort the light because it's telling the normals telling the light how to react, or it's telling the surface how to react to the light. So it's telling the shader how to shade, how to light the surface versus the shadows or a bump map. With the bump map, it's almost doing the same thing, but it's not. But like there's a bump map gives the illusion, of a surface. Like it's like a texture surface. It's two different things between a bump map and a normal map. Because the normal map is for lighting, the bump map is for textures, and then it's going to be, you know, it's something in conjunction with, the two in conjunction, or that with in conjunction, a bump map with a height map, which are two black and white textures. But what do you do with this displacement? The height map goes in displacement. It'll actually displace the geometry to match the bump map or the height map, whatever, and but it'll still, to get the fine details, you can, it still tells you how a normal map tells us how it lit. But the other mostly fine details are done by like the normal, like by the bump map. But like it's basically the same thing. You really don't have to have a bump map and have a normal map. You can just do more. You can get more versatility out of both. You get a little bit better look because, like, you have a detail map. Like this would be set up like a detail map system where if I had the height map, or this normal map would be the detail map, and the height map would be, the texture map. The texture, the actual surface. You actually give the surface actual like texture look to it, and then you got the color channel, which also can help depending on how the textures, depending on what type of the purpose of the texture, the purpose of the model, where it's going to be at. 'Cause a lot of times, sometimes you can just use this and get away with it for steel, like for you don't need a texture map for something that's steel. Well, you just got like that's part of optimization in the video game. Like there's something that's steel, you really need a texture map for. You just really need a material to like this for metal that's used for metal for all metal surfaces. Then you tweak the specularity and the roughness to get to where you want it. But that's or whether it's something metallic, like I said, something like that. it's good to look in here at the preview because this is going to be a more accurate show versus this, because this is what it should look like. And if you want it with the lighting and whatever you got going on in the environment, with underneath a regular light, you want to get the same kind of. You can't get different looks. Like you look at this and look at that and be like, why is that so different? Or especially with like using stuff that has, I guess, what is that? Your index of refraction, your transmission. Some of that stuff you can see better here in this material part than you can see in here in real light. It's like you might have to adjust the light, or there's things you might have to adjust in the world to make it look like this. Like it might not have the same outcome. So you have to look at it's good to look at both of these and blend. That's Blender, but like I said, it's all about bringing assets into the game engines, and it's still technically modding. Like I said, I don't think it's, I guess, software design. And it's like I said, it's still best in line. It's just a whole bunch of stuff, but you got a whole bunch of menus, a whole bunch of click down things. Everything's done. It's just how you implement it, how you want to do it, and most of your trouble is importing and utilizing assets and driving them with functionality, driving them with blueprints or C# or C++ or whatever you're trying to do. But I said, there's a whole bunch of different things that might not have, and I don't even know, like I said, I might not have the green channel flipped on here, which is not ours, just because it's a non-color. Flip the green channel, and I should have had this should be flip the green channel. So now I should get a better looking ground. What did I use this texture for? I can't, the water. And you gotta notice it's in here like that. There's some I've been using it for Unreal has worked the same way since pretty much Unreal 3 that I know of. Since the UDK is still pretty much, you double click on this stuff, it brings up another option menu. You double click on a shader, it brings up the shader editor. And this is a variant of a shader. So like, I guess an instance of a shader. So it let me be able to change the maps. And I got a virtual textures. So, but like that would be the main actual shader. Would be map. What's this one? Instance. That's an instance. And this works for all the other files too. It's how is that an instance? So where's the other? What do I do with the other ones? That's my unlisted material. This is the Vertex paint. Hmm. Alright, here it is. This is the main one. That's the virtual material one. And that's what's driving. It looks like it's an error, but it's not. That's making. It's the graphics for they're making a. You had to set it up like this for making a material instance, and so that's how it's going to look because that's how the base textures look for virtual texture. Well, for a virtual texture, the two different, and that's the. You have to go in and label your textures and make sure they imported virtual textures. We use the virtual textures. There's all little catches and little nuances, and you don't know until you do it, and you don't see you get an error. You're like, why you get an error? But Unreal I think is more friendly when it comes to that because it won't work. The game engine just won't work, and you have to start over. There's some things that just will not work. I mean, you can get a really lopsided performance out of it, and like I said, it won't run. I mean, the only thing it will say, the lighting ain't built. You can run without the lighting built. But that's the only thing that's like the no, or like I'm getting a. Mm, the minimum LED value 1 range on the asset. And that's something I can just go into the import. I can go into the import. Click on, go directly to the file, and that's something that's on the model. You know where the LEDs are. That's what the LEDs is going to be on the model, and so It's saying the minimum LOD. And I think it should be set to 2. Because you got a light map LOD. Well, you got, well, no. You got a light map UV. LOD is level of detail. So as I zoom out, I see it's so much stuff. But zoom out and zoom in, the model's going to decimate, or it's going to subdivide and add more detail, add more polygons. But as I zoom out, it should reduce the number of polygons. Right here, you'll see that right here, because it's on LOD 0 right now as I'm going, but it should be, like I have it set as a single LOD. And that's what it's saying the error is versus value of 3 is out of range. Value of 1 is out of range. So it's saying we go back and what's it out of range? And what I did was I imported the models, but I imported only one LOD because you can set the LODs with, well, you can't do it with, well, you probably can now. I don't know. I haven't looked in a while. It's always, let's say it's something to update with the engines. There's Nanite wasn't being able to use with certain materials or like transparent materials. The reason why this foliage is the old foliage, not the nanite foliage. And I didn't care about LODs because of nanite. And this is really something that's not going to really affect it because, well, I mean, it won't because if I was using nanite, it wouldn't matter. It was set up using nanite. And I have it set to auto LOD, so I don't know what the deal is. Let's say that's one of those things. It should have only one LOD anyways, because it wasn't the mesh count. It's 865 vertices, it's 1,000 polygons. You don't want 1,000 polygons, depending on how far away you want it to decimate. You don't want it. You want to go down to. You want it to reduce. It should reduce. Yeah, it's supposed to automatically handle it. No clue why it's not automatically handling it. Compute distances. I don't think that really matters with it. I don't know. Alright, there it goes. So it's been a minute. See, now I'm close. I'm getting my 1,198, then 598 break card. And I can control these splits in here also. But I have not opened Unreal in so long, so I care about collision right now. Let's see, the generate mesh distance fields, these things, that's you want to use them for nanite with the lighting and lumen. You need, that's what you're going to use for lumen, not with the big light, but you can't use, well, there's, in the mesh, you have settings for your meshes, you have settings for attention, everything, you double click on everything, it brings up a settings menu for it. Everything has a settings menu for it. And then, even with even with having something fully optimized, or even with knowing, there's just so much stuff. It's ridiculous. So you have to look up a lot of things. But at the main core functionality, putting the game together, is bringing in assets, make sure to optimize for a game, and then being able to run up, the animations, everything is, you're making that outside the engine, you're bringing it in. The game's already, the software is already made. You have to design the design. You're doing that with the art. It's not it's like I said, it's not. I don't think it's really not really software design. It's still modding. 'Cause this is already made. You come in, and you get your world settings. You can access them here, or you can access them in any other window. I think. Or add them on their world settings. So when you hit the checkbox, it's going to pop it over here. and you got more settings, which is, like I said, the game's already made. Everything's already in there. It's just knowing what you're doing. But like, as I haven't used Unreal 4 or Unreal 5 in a long time. But I got two games already making in it. This was like the test level to see how far I can break it down into something simple. But that's what an open world like this using this light, which is you really you don't need to. You don't have to have dynamic lighting. It really, the place a game that's corridor to corridor. It's one of those things that get the best, I guess, some of the best stats when it comes because when it comes out, it's easier to optimize too because you're just building corridors or it's not using world light and the lights. You don't have light placement and baked lighting on indoor objects and walls versus all these outdoor objects. The ESA to really give it some life. I mean, this is not even having no vertex movement at all, or no vortex animations, or it's not a moving foliage. It's just sitting there, and so adding animations to this vertex animations to it, or adding animations even adds more to the game and more work for the processor. So that stuff you don't have to worry about with an indoor game. We make corridor to corridor game. And then you got to worry about calling distances. And like I said, you don't have to worry about that with this. This is the reason why you're going to be able to make a really good looking open world game because world partition, one file per actor. It's optimization for huge level. Then with data layers, you can switch between different styles of different variations of different levels. It's just gonna, I mean, games are gonna get massive. Like they're gonna get huge. But yeah, that's my argument for game design and I guess what do you want to call what's the name of this? Because my head's already ringing because there's so much stuff on it. It made it like, and that's two game engines. That's not even, it's software design versus game design.